Which sequence of y values was formed from the function y equals negative 2x minus 9 using whole numbers for x? I'm going to give you two different ways to figure out this problem. First, I'm going to kind of show you the long way, but I feel like I need to review what a whole number is. Okay, we have numbers that are like negative, oops, hold on, it's not writing. Oh, it's writing in white. Numbers like negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And I'm obviously not going to write them all, but you can continue forever that way into the positive whole numbers and forever this way into the negative numbers. Those numbers are known as integers. Okay, integers contain positive and negative whole numbers. Then you also have what we call natural numbers. Natural numbers are just numbers like the numbers you learn how to count as a young child. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, those are the natural numbers. Whole numbers are very, very similar to natural, except for whole numbers also include the number 0. Okay, so integers include the negatives. Natural numbers just start at 1 and go up, and whole numbers include 0 and go up. So do you see the difference between the three types of numbers? Okay, so we're focusing in on whole numbers. So the very first whole number that exists is 0. So if I take this, y equals negative 2x, because it says numbers for x, and I replace it with a whole number, 0, and then don't forget the minus 9, what does that become? Y equals what? Negative 9. Do you see a negative 9 anywhere in these lists? No. So we know 0 is not one of the numbers that we need to use. So then I'm going to move on to the next whole number, which would be 1. Y equals negative 2 times 1 minus 9 equals what? Negative 11. Okay, but you can't automatically just circle C and be done. Okay? Because now I'm going to plug in the next whole number, which is 2. What does that become? Negative 13, and that's not it. So C's out. It could be A or B, but now let's plug in the next whole number, which is 3. Negative 2 times 3 is a negative 6, and a negative 6 minus 9 is a negative 15. And then if you plugged in a 4, it would become a negative 8 minus 9, which is negative 17. If you plug in a 5, it would become negative 10 minus 9, which is negative 19. So it's A. But now I'm going to show you another way you could have looked at this. Okay, so it's y equals negative 2x minus 9. Yesterday we learned about arithmetic sequences. If I write a sub n equals negative 2n minus 9, doesn't that look very similar? Arithmetic sequences are linear, okay? Just like that's a linear equation, an arithmetic sequence is also a linear equation. Except for instead of y, we're using a sub n, and instead of x, you use n. Now remember from yesterday, what does this negative 2 tell us? Remember, this was always... No, this number that sits beside the... Right, it's your common difference. It tells you what they go up or down by. So basically, this negative 2 tells you the slope, what they go up or down by. Well, isn't this the only list that consistently goes down by 2? So that's another way you could have got it without even dealing with whole numbers. Because that is the only list that goes down by 2 every single time. Now, say that D is started off going down by 2. That's down by 2, down by 2. So say they had put a negative 16 there. You would have then had to start plugging in whole numbers to see if it produced those numbers when you plugged in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or those numbers. But since this was the only list that went down by 2 consistently, you didn't even really have to plug in numbers like I did. It was automatically A. Does that make sense? Okay, let me say this again because I've said it before. These warm-ups are on a website that is created to help you prepare for tests like the EOC. This is I get these warm-ups from a site that the school pays for. Okay, so it's a company, and these companies work with the people that make your EOC, and these warm-ups are EOC type questions. So every day when you come in here and you don't try the warm-up on your own, and then you don't really pay attention to me go over it, you just write down the answer so that you can get that daily grade in the grade book. Yeah, you might get a daily grade, but you are not helping yourself prepare for the EOC, which counts 20% of your grade. Okay? You need to take these seriously. If you come in here every day and try these and then pay attention, you are basically studying for the EOC every single day. Okay? All right. Now let's go to page 27, and I'm going to take questions from the homework. 14? Okay, starting with number 14. The directions for number 14 said, given the first term, which in this case is 35, and the common difference, which is 4, of an arithmetic sequence, find the first 5 terms and the explicit formula. So for number 14, they gave us the first term and they gave us the common difference. They want us to find the first 5 terms, which they've already found the first one, so you really just have to find the second term, the third term, the fourth term, and the fifth term. And they also want you to write out the formula. Okay, now we know the first term is 35. How do you easily know what the next term is? Right, if the common difference is positive 4, that means you're adding 4. So 39, then, and then, right. Now, writing the explicit formula takes a little bit more work. The explicit formula is A sub n equals D times n minus 1 plus A sub 1. Okay, that is the explicit formula. Continue. A sub n equals, the first thing is D. Well, they told us the D is 4. Then parenthesis n minus 1 plus A sub 1, which they told us is 35. Sometimes they may leave the answer like that, but more times than not, they are going to simplify by distributing out the 4, and that makes a 4n minus 4, and then bring down the plus 35, and now the last step is combine like terms. 4n can't be combined with anything, but negative 4 plus 35 is 31. Now let me say something to those of you who struggle when you see something like negative 4 plus 35. Negative 4 plus 35, first of all, can be typed in the calculator, or you can just reverse it. The commutative property of addition says that you can flip-flop the numbers, but make sure when you do, the 35 stays positive and the 4 stays negative. And now everybody should be able to tell me what 35 minus 4 is. 31. You can always flip-flop the numbers if that's easier for you to do in your head. Or you can type it in the calculator. Okay, other questions from the homework? 26. What? 10? Uh-oh. All right, number 10. The reason this one is probably difficult for some of y'all is just because of the fractions. But remember, you have a calculator to type in these fractions. So in this one, they wanted us to find the first 5 terms, so A1 through A5. Remember, it's A for arithmetic, and then 1 for the first term, 2 for the second term, 3 for third term, and then the fourth term and the fifth term. And then they also want you to find the name term, which for this problem is the 23rd term. Okay, for number 10, though, they didn't give you a list of numbers. You don't have to find out the first term, well, in a minute we will, but you don't have to find out the common difference because that number beside the n is your common difference. You're adding 1/2 every time. But to figure out the first term, you're going to need to take the n and replace it with a 1. Okay, so let's talk about what that will look like typed in your calculator. Okay, 11 over 8 is a fraction. So how do I type in a fraction? Alpha y equals. And then I'm typing in a fraction, which is a numerator over denominator, so I just click number 1, or you could have just clicked enter. Type in the 11 over 8 and then come out from under the fraction before typing in your plus sign. And now I need to type in 1/2, which is another fraction. So alpha y equals, again, number 1 n over d. And type in 1/2. And then out beside it is where the n sits. Well, remember, the n is touching the 1/2, which means they're being multiplied. So you can put parentheses 1. Or you could really just put times 1. You don't have to put parentheses if you don't want to. And you get 15 over 8. Yes? Yes. If you get your answer in decimal form, you'll just go to math, which is right below alpha, and see how number 2, if it's in decimal form, you'll need to hit 1 to fraction. If it's in a fraction and you want to change it to decimal, you'll hit number 2. And then you'll have to hit enter once it's on the screen. Okay, so now to figure out the second term, what do you think I'm going to do? Okay, or you could also do what? You could either add 1/2, since we know that's our d, we could add 1/2 to this, or we could plug in 2 for the n. Either way you want to do it. Okay, so when you plug in 2 for n, or you add 1/2 to that, what do you get? 19 over 8. Which way did you do it? Yeah, you just need to keep adding 1/2 after you get the first term, because 1/2 is the d. Or you need to plug in 2 for second term, 3 for third term. Okay, what did you get for the third term? Sion, what's your question? Okay, watch. I'm going to type it in. Okay, look. Let me show you something that will save you time if you're choosing to type in 2, 3, 4. Instead of retyping all of that in, because that was kind of time consuming typing those fractions, I've shown you this before. You just arrow up till it's highlighted, and then you hit enter, and it will copy and paste it for you. Now that it's pasted, if you just arrow over, you can simply go in and change that to a 2. And you hit enter, and you get 19 over 8. Then if you want to find the third term, you copy and paste it again, and you replace the 2 with a 3, and you get 23 over 8. Then you would type in a 4, and you get, well, you replace it with a 4, and you get 27 over 8. And then you replace it with a 5 for fifth term, and you get 31 over 8. It's not the wrong way. It's just that it probably, if you're rounding it off, it'll mess up the final answer. So keep it in fraction form. Okay, and then what was the name term we were supposed to find? 23rd? So now you would go and you replace that 5 with a 23. And when you do that, you'll end up covering up the end parenthesis, but it won't matter. You can put it back if you want, but it won't matter. 103 over 8. Okay, now, not that you have to know this, but I'm going to explain to you why the top numbers all ended up increasing by 4 and the bottom numbers ended up staying 8 when we were just adding 1/2 every time. Okay, so just watch. You don't have to write this down, just watch. Okay, think about it. If your first term is 15 over 8, and you know that the common difference is 1/2, okay, that means you add 1/2 to get to the next term. Think back to when you were in elementary school and they taught you how to add fractions. What's the first thing you have to do? Right, common denominator. This is an 8. Won't this become an 8? How do you make it an 8? By, right, and then it's an 8. But remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So think about it. Every time we have to add 1/2 to the previous fraction, you're basically multiplying the bottom by 4 and the top by 4, which is why your bottom numbers all stayed 8 because you made the common denominator, and your tops all increased by 4 because of that 4. Does that make sense? Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, this is what we're going to do next. Monday when I was out, you worked on the test review sheet. But the last page of the review sheet was not given to you because I knew you wouldn't know how to do it because it's what I taught on Tuesday. So I'm about to give it out, and I want you to pretend like it's a quiz. It's 4 questions. You're going to work on it by yourself for about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and then I'm going to go over it. But I want you to act like it's a quiz over what we learned yesterday and what we just reviewed today. On the review sheet. Given the sequence 7, 4, 1, negative 2, they first want you to write the explicit formula, and then they want you to find the 50th term. Okay, so the explicit formula is A sub n equals D times n minus 1 plus A sub 1, or like I showed you a second ago, how they write it on the formula sheet. To be able to do this, you have to know the D and the A sub 1, and then you just fill them in. What is the D? Right, because to get from one number to the next in this, they're subtracting 3. And then multiply that by n minus 1, and then add the A sub 1, which in this one is 7. That's the first term. So now you have to simplify it by distributing the negative 3. And negative 3 times n is negative 3n. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. And then plus 7 doesn't get distributed to, you just bring it down. And now in the final step, you combine like terms, and those are like terms, so they combine to a 10. Now that you have the formula, the explicit formula, you can use it to find the 50th term, A sub 50. A sub 50 equals negative 3n plus 10. But since we're trying to find the 50th term, you replace n with 50, and so A sub 50 equals what? Negative 140. Because look, this is a negative 3 times 50, which is negative 150, and then a negative 150 plus 10 brings you back to negative 140. You just forgot the negative, evidently. Okay, now number 19. You could write out the explicit formula for this, but really, I would not waste my time. Since it's not like they want to know a long ways away how many papers would be left, so this is how I would do it. I put after Monday, after Tuesday, after Wednesday, after Thursday, after Friday. And they told me in the information that after Monday there were 953 sheets. After Tuesday there were 906 sheets. After Wednesday there were 859. And then they said, if this pattern continues, how many sheets of paper will be left after Friday, which would be right here? Well, to know that, you kind of got to also know after Thursday. What is the pattern? Right. Each day, 47 sheets are used. So after Thursday, there would have been how many used? And after Friday, there would have been, right. So you don't even really need to use the 1,000. It said after Monday, 953, so that's where I started it. Okay, now number 20. What is the 9th term of the arithmetic sequence defined by the formula A sub n equals 2 plus 1/4 n minus 1? So they gave you the explicit formula, but they kind of wrote it the way that the EOC formula sheet does. Except for they put this here at least. They put the D here instead of here, but they started with the first term. Okay, that's the first term. That's the common difference. Remember, because the common difference is always the number being multiplied by n minus 1. The first term is always separate. Now, they did not distribute it out, and you don't have to, because the answers are not the formula anymore, right? The answers are the 9th term. So all you have to do to figure out the 9th term is replace the n's with 9. So 2 plus 1/4 times 9 minus 1. And then you just type in 2 plus 1/4 times 9 minus 1, or you can just type in 1/4 times 8. And what do you get? 4. Right. That's all you have to do. That's a very easy question. Don't make it harder than it is. They've already given you a formula. N is where you plug in your terms. Since they want the 9th term, you replace it with a 9, and you just calculate it, and it'll give you the answer. All right, number 21. Write an explicit formula for the sequence. Pay attention in the front, or you'll miss easy questions Friday. 9, 2, -5, -12, -19. Okay, well, to write the explicit formula, which we all know is a sub n equals d times n minus 1 plus a sub 1, or sometimes they put the a sub 1 up front. You have to know the d and the a sub 1. For this particular sequence, what is the d? Right, each time they're subtracting 7 to get to the next term. What is the a sub 1? 9. So it'll be a sub n equals d, which is negative 7, times n minus 1 plus 9. Now, sometimes you may take a test and they may leave the answer like that. But as you can see from your choices, the answer was not left like this. It was simplified. So we need to simplify it. Distribute the negative 7, and that becomes negative 7n plus 7. Drop the positive 9, and that becomes a sub n equals negative 7n plus 16, which is d. Now, I'm about to show you a little shortcut method, okay, that will help you, especially when there's multiple choices. So I would not pack up. This could really help you out on Friday. All you got to do is watch. We still have 5 minutes, so you don't have to freak out and feel like you're not going to get out of here when the bell rings. Okay, look. This is the shortcut method. We all see that they're going down by 7. Everybody can see that. So that pretty much lets you know that the number beside the n has to be a negative 7. So that rules out A and C right away. Okay, so with multiple choice, that's one way to narrow it down, is by looking at what they're going down by, and that number always is the number by the n. Then look at this. Isn't 9 the first term? So 2 is the second term, negative 5 is the third term, fourth term, fifth term, and so on. If you went backwards to the 0th term, what would it have been? 16, because 16 minus 7 is 9. This number is always the 0th term. Okay, once it's in simplest form, that number would have been the 0th number. Okay? Well, you still have to learn this way because sometimes the answers are left like that. They don't always simplify it. Okay, so just remember that you can easily figure it out by knowing the d and the 0th term.